So welcome back, everybody, and thank you for being so kind and being back here almost on time. We're trying to catch the schedule that we have pre-written, so I guess we're going to be on time because we're going to shorten the lunch break a bit. We're in a delay of 15 to 20 minutes now, but we're not going to shorten the first panel, which is on schedule today. It is called How to Get Funded in the Early Phase. The panelists are already here, and
Mr. Sasha Cvetovic from Ukraine is here. This is maybe the last time that we see Sasha alive because in January he's traveling to Africa with Tesla. The whole road trip in Tesla. You're going to get robbed. You're so going to get robbed. But thank you for being with us. The panel is yours. Please introduce our panelists, and you have 35 minutes.
Thanks a lot for the nice wishes. Thanks. Okay, hello everybody. So my name is Sasha Cvetovic and I'm not the director of the Facebook, regardless of what you have seen or heard last few days in media and on Facebook. So today I have an honor to be host of the panel with 4 guests, and I will start introducing the one you have already seen before as the keynote speaker. So it is Anat Avni-Papo, and she is scouting technologies for investors, mentoring and consulting startups. Then we have Mr. Csaba Kakosi, managing partner of the Day One Capital. Then also Mirka Jozic, City of Zagreb, head of the City Office for Economy. And then Boris Guina, deputy president of the board of directors of Hamak Bikro. One applause for our guests, please. So what we are going to talk about, the panel topic is how to get funded in the early phase, but to speak plainly and openly, it is about how to get money when you have none, when you have just slide decks, just a pitch like the one you have seen a few minutes ago. So basically from the beginning, I will start with Csaba. We are going to go on the first name basis since this is more relaxed style. You are coming from the bunch of guys that usually startups came when they want money, so the investment companies, it's usually knocking on the door, pulling your sleeves and asking for money. So when they approach you, what exactly first are you looking to find in them? To give them money?
Yeah, sure. I mean, well, yes, I'm from Day One Capital, which is a Budapest-based venture capital firm, and we are investing in seed and Series A stage into companies in Hungary and also in the region. Actually, we have a portfolio company from Croatia. It's called Aurelian. Some of you probably know them. Just replying to your question, I think, I mean, what we have learned so far is that basically what we are looking at is 50% of the product and 50% of the team. Mm-hmm. So it just goes together. So you can have a beautiful product if your team doesn't able to grow that thing, and if you have a great team. But your product doesn't really fly, then you will also have a problem. So what we are really trying to see when we are talking to different companies is really that kind of two facts, whether they are together, and then we have a case to discuss. And thirdly, and which is also very interesting, whether there is a chemistry basically between us, so between investors and the startup, because our aim is to be a partner of all companies for 3 to 5 years at least. So if at the first minute we don't have a chemistry there, then probably it doesn't worth really to sit on a boat for 3 to 5 years together. So these are the basic things that we are trying to look at, and then later on certainly go deeply on the product and everything else to scale up a project.
So again, we heard the team is first. On your webpage, I have seen one sentence: we invest in people more than anything else. And then, Anat, how can you help, for example, a startup to present themselves better? We heard always that investors are mostly investing in the team first. Me personally, when I'm investing my own money, also my idea is to invest in the people that I'm able to drink beer with. Otherwise, if we are not somehow compatible, then usually I'm not going to be able to support them. So somehow we need to be able to live together, because this is like something like marriage for the interest. We are going to go together. So when the team come to you, and what would you advise them how to be better looking in the eyes of investors later?
All right, so can you hear me? Okay, so first of all, you have to come ready for every meeting. Excellent material, as I just said, and knowing the market, knowing the product, the numbers, and your competitors. Don't say you don't have any. I heard it.
No
as well.
competition.
No competition.
We are the best.
Yeah. So you have to come with all the materials. You have to listen to the investors. If you want to say something, you should listen. You should be a strong team, as my friend just said and mentioned. At least 2 people. All right. Okay. The right number.
Team of one is usually not
Team of one, yeah. No, but usually, sometimes you come to investors with your idea, and you said, when I'll have the money, or once I have the money, I will raise some more people. And this is wrong answer, because when investor puts a lot of money, he wants to know that if something get wrong with one of the members, there's still another one. So this is the first reason. But the second reason is to have a few disciplines. So one have to be the technology, in charge of the technology, and the other has to know a bit from everything, so he can manage, so he can take the company much further. So basically the team, the technology, the market, size and value are very important to come ready with, and to start from here, of course.
Okay, but beside funding we can get from the investors, we can also get some funding from the governmental agencies and probably the local communities. So Mirka, what city of Zagreb is able to offer, and how they can support startups in early phase regarding money? Usually people are talking about money. I know that money is not everything, but it's pretty important in the beginning. So what can we expect?
The money is a very, very important part. Startups know that very well. So I agree that infrastructure, education, it's not enough. Together with Hamak Bikro, we gave some grants, but I don't think it's the best way. Something what we need in the city of Zagreb, in the whole Croatia, is one real VC fund. We have to have a fund which will finance SMEs in general, and startups can find their place in that fund. City of Zagreb prepared everything about that fund, and we planned some 5 million kunas. We know that it's not enough for start. It is enough for start, but we don't want to be alone in that fund. We need HBOR, our bank. We need Hamak Bikro or some national institution to be with us, because we can't close in our only in city of Zagreb. Life is going out, so SMEs are connected. We really think that we have to have that fund, and I hope when we start with it, with that campaign in first quarter of next year, that we will find partners, and private sector too. I believe if we establish it, then we can talk about startups ecosystem in Croatia, that it has all components to develop better.
That's a great idea and a great project. I hope it would start, because the cooperation between local government, the national level, and economy and bigger companies is the model that we have seen in Israel. Is the model we have seen in Sweden, in a lot of countries. So
I forgot to say that there is platform that we can get EU funds for that. If other countries can get, then Croatia can get the money from EU funds too. So we can have to start with it.
That's basically the one of the steps that is missing here in Croatia. This kind of fund which would basically finance the early phase. So Boris, since you are now here speaking in front of the two basically agencies now put together, Bikra and Hamag. What can you offer for the early financing for the startups which turn to your offices?
Well, for those who are not familiar with Croatian Agency for SMEs, Innovation and Investment, we are primarily facilitating access to finance to the entrepreneurs. So in last period, we have many of those tools. First, we had this pre-seed component. We were giving from 50,000 kunas to 200,000 kunas. It was like co-matching. If a private investor invests in equity, you will get like free, that was grant from us. Second round was seed capital. We invest in three, also, but it was convertible loan, kind of convertible loan. If you are successful, you will get money back. If you are not, it's on you. So also we have those micro and small loans. We have guarantees. We also in one of the shareholders in ANIF Venture Capital Fund. This fund is like a regional fund established by EBRD and AIF. So we are one of the shareholders. So I think in last year we have already 3 investments from Croatia. It was Agrivi, Bulb, and Sea Marines. So I think we see ourselves as an important brick in building of Croatian ecosystem. So if you want to, we have many tools, many different aspects, many ways of financing this. For example, in this time we have micro and small loans. It's like loan to maximum of 50,000 euros, but the interest rate is just 1%, actually from 0.5 to 1.5%. So I know it's a loan, it's not a grant. People like to get grants, but also
everybody likes grants.
Everybody likes grants, yes. Also, we are implementing some EU funds, for example, in innovation of new established MSP. Also, this big grant from EU, it's IREI, actually IRI. So it's like grant, but it's also for small and big size companies, and it's maximum.
Okay, that's a bit later phase, I think. That's true. But what do you think about this proposal that Mirka gave about the fund that would put together money from the local community? In this particular case, Zagreb, and maybe some support from the national level, that probably is going to be on your table if it is going to be decided. I think it's a pretty good idea and that we should go for it. What do you think?
I think it is a good idea. Actually, we have good collaboration with the city of Zagreb. With this pre-seed component, we established it, but the city of Zagreb came to us and said, okay, we want to invest also in this, in city of Zagreb startups. The implementation of this could be problematic because in the last period the trend is that we are all taking money for EU, so they are cutting all budget money, and it's not easy to implement this money from EU together with city of Zagreb.
Okay, nothing is easy. But
the procedures are really slow, and but as the idea, I agree completely.
Do you have any comment, Mirka?
I think the procedures are not a problem because it's developed on EU level. And we prepared really a lot of documentation. If we have money, we can start. I think it's better to invest in a VC fund rather than in grants. Through this fund, we would give money. 70% would go in ownership and 30% as debt capital.
Sorry.
Just a second.
But I think that's not enough money. 5 million kunas, it's a great...
5 million kunas only from city of Zagreb. But we really don't want to be alone.
Anyway, it's not enough because we have this seed component. We had like 2 million euros. And it's also not enough. We're supposed to have one VC established by our own, but now it was supposed to be a loan for the World Bank. But now we get some we are trying to get some free money, and also we are now trying to make some new tool. It was like venture loans. So it's kind of it's loan probably for startups who are too small for
Yes, we are
VCs, for
exactly.
too small or too big maybe for business angels. So we are not now trying to establish this, but I completely agree that we have to work together, and this conference is established actually by two of us.
Okay,
I think so.
let's have the conclusion that two of you are going to start working on it and see what is going
Or
to happen.
5P.
So that can be a nice conclusion of the panel. But let's go a bit further.
Yeah.
Usually this kind of investment funds are also backed by private investors. So for example, Csaba, have you any experience of putting the money together with some kind of governmental or EU money or local government money?
Yeah, I mean, our fund is 100% privately financed, so we only deal with private money in our funds. But actually, we do have syndicates with some funds who has some Jeremy type of EU money or state money. I mean, it just goes down to the conditions. So I mean, if we can form a syndicate on market terms, then it doesn't really matter whether it comes from public sources or private sources. I mean, in practice, our experience is in Hungary. I mean, there is a history of EU money in place in the VC industry as well. I would say nowadays there are tons of money available from public sources, and certainly I think it needs to be a balance in that regard. So I mean, in early stages of a market development, the state, the municipalities can have a very important role to create the ecosystem, to start the first days of this system. Later on, I think really they should find the balance in order to give the possibility for the private money to come in. I'm just a very liberal, so I really want to stay with the principle that private money should really, on the long run, govern the VC sector. But as I said, I mean, in practice, we have 2 or 3 companies in our portfolio where there is public funds also investing. Sometimes it took a bit of time to get a common understanding on the terms. But we managed it, and if there is really an encouragement on the side of the public authorities to be really helping the industry, then I think they can also accept market terms, and then it helps startups as well as the ecosystem in general as well.
So there is room for private money and public money also. So Anat, what is your experience, for example, from Israel? Because here in EU, we tend to like this public money, and there are some companies really taking grants, and sometimes we even joke that they are sometimes even grant dependent, so they are fighting for another grant instead of focusing on the customers, maybe instead of focusing on the market and to get money from the customers. So what would you advise to the startup in the early phase? Whom to turn to, basically? Public money, private money, angel investor, fund?
Well, it depends. It depends in the amount of money that you need, in the stage that you are. A lot of other things, it depends, because if there's, of course, lots of money and you cannot get it from, the government, they usually seed, but there are also some other steps, so you can start with seed and then the government will invent some more. So it depends what you exactly need. And also, it depends on your connections, where you can get the process quicker, because with the government it will take a while. And if you have connection with private investors and angels, it could be much faster. If we're talking about this duration, so with investors and VCs, usually it takes about 3 to 6 months. It could be less, but if we're talking about this procedure with the government, it might take a bit longer. It could take even a year. And also, you should show them that you spend a specific amount to get the same amount as well. So you're waiting for this, and you don't know what the situation and how money you can spend, and you will get money. It works very good, but you know, if you need the money now, it might be a problem.
And Csaba, give us like some other example of the companies that come to you searching for the money. What is the earliest phase you invested in some particular company? How does it end up? Can you have some example on this?
Well, I mean, actually what we require as a minimum is a working prototype from the company and some kind of a validation, whether comes from a professional partner, from a technical side, or it just comes from a community that uses your product or services. It doesn't really matter, but still the traction should be there, and also kind of early working model of your product. So I mean, we are VC, we are investing private money, so we don't have this kind of a patience just to finance R&D in a way. So I mean, there are some limitations on that regard. So I think, I mean, the longest development period that we financed was roughly 6 months, 6 to 8 months, and then the product should be on the market to be tested. So I think for us this is the minimum. But what is changing nowadays, at least it's very true for Hungary, but as I understood, it's also coming in Croatia strongly. That a lot more angel money, pre-seed money, these kind of things are getting more available in Hungary. I mean, especially public money went a lot of public money went to the pre-seed stage in a way. So, and it helps VCs because then the very early stage of risks are covered by public sources or by angel money, and then the institutional VCs can really come into play when the product is ready, and really our job is to help them to market it and help them to scale it.
Okay. Before I put my next question, we are going to have the time for maybe 1 or 2 questions from the audience. So if you do have questions, think about it, raise your hands, and I think they would give you some kind of microphone or something in order to your question to be heard. One more question for you. I like to ask this usually investors, and when you talk about your portfolio, it's interesting, but can you say something about your anti-portfolio? What have you missed in the terms of investment? Have you had any of the important companies in your past that came to you as a proposal for investment and you turned them down and later they become rich and famous?
Well, we have one big miss in our history. Is that it was a company, a Hungarian software developer company, where we wanted to invest, but they wanted to raise a bigger round that we could offer them. So we told them that we would be ready to take part in the round, but you should find a lead investor. And they had some talks with others with more money. They finally didn't get it, and they decided to bootstrap. So go without funding, and in I think 6 or 8 months' time, they got into Y Combinator in Silicon Valley. So I think that was a big miss. So in a way, probably nowadays I would try to structure the deal in another way, just to be in. But I mean, it's fact of life that sometimes we miss opportunities, and also I mean, we have portfolio companies that failed. So, I mean, this is also part of the story. This is in VC life. You have to be used to that fact that sometimes early on you believe in something very much. We were convinced in sometimes that this should be a great company, and for one reason or another they failed at the end, and actually we lost the money. But we try to get the money back on other projects.
Good. So the lesson learned is sometimes it's good to be turned down by an investor and do bootstrapping, because on the later phase you may come with a much higher valuation.
Yeah, I mean actually we always tell every company that comes to us that, look, if you're able to go without VC money, then go for it. So I mean, certainly I think it's a big question for all founders, because VC money doesn't just because you don't have money, but also to accelerate your process. So sometimes you have your revenues, you can do your own, but maybe you will remain on the level of a kind of a classic SME. But if you want to really go very fast, then you need the investor in order to help you to scale up your project quickly enough.
Boris, have you had any kind of big miss or, let's say, anti-portfolio in your current investment, so that you turned down somebody and now you are sorry for this?
Yes, actually we turned down the Rimac. We turned down the Rimac, but we
me too.
No, yeah,
but it was my money, so I'm even more feeling pity for this.
But it wasn't for the batteries and the car, it was for some glow. He came to Bicro with some kind of glow, gaming glow, so it was the proof of concept. So we threw him away, and I think we made a good decision to him, because finally, maybe because that was the reason that he went to the other part, to the batteries, to this part, to the cars. Actually, we have so many successful stories, and I think almost all of successful Croatian startups passed through our agency in some way, or through microloans, through grants, or to loan. So actually, our clients were Radion, as you mentioned, Mr. Kakasi. He was our client. He was our client
Radion,
also. Rimac cars. Rimac. He has like 2 proof of concept. Irkroko. He had some grants, and also some guarantees, and now he gets also this big investment, as you probably know. We have Shaute, we have Rapsly, Photomat. I think almost all of successful startups pass through our agency, I think.
Okay, and City of Zagreb, you started with a lot of interesting projects. We are very close to your premises with your nice technological park. And what are the future ideas, what to do with it? And are you going to be able to help with some financing beside this investment fund you are trying to put up?
First, we have to finish our technology park. Infrastructure is beautiful, it looks nice, but without equipment there, it can't work properly. So we got money from EU funds, 16 million kunas, and we will supply it with equipment needed. And what we try to get there, it's experts from industry to connect it. Our expert from university too, and after that, I think it's finished. So equipment will come, but money is something without it. Our technology park can't give real results. I would be the happiest one if private sector can make it in Croatia, in Zagreb. But you know that our VC funds are not VC funds. They are not ready to invest in risk projects.
In early phase especially, yeah.
And our job now, City of Zagreb as a capital, as a city in Croatia which has the biggest budget, strongest budget, yeah. I think our job is to start it, to create that fund, that it starts, even with only 5 million kunas, but it will start, just to show that it is possible, and I believe that private sector will come, just to be with them, and after that I would be happiest one if really City of Zagreb from the budget wouldn't need to give the money for that fund. But without funds, without financing on that way, I can't see real development of our startup
Some of them would be able to bootstrap, but definitely with initial help, more of them would go to the phase later to be financed by the investment funds and foreign one and domestic one. Any questions from the audience? The first question you should always fake, so this one is faked, okay? Give it. Later, everybody would ask a question.
This is a mic.
Yeah, this is.
Awesome. So I have a
Just speak into it. There is a camera also.
I have a question for
Hidden camera.
Csaba, for Anat, and for you, Sasha. So the question is, how do you see for the startups who are not the developers, but they are like the owners? And for example, for me, I'm a designer. So what I did is I have the idea, I designed the interface, have the whole concept, have the business plan and everything else. How do you see the startup who approaches you that will have to outsource the development team to the agency, or like how do you see
Just
this? Okay. So so how do you see the startup who approaches you regarding the investment money that they are seeking for? So that would be the question. How are you
question is for whom?
For all three of you.
Okay, so if I understand correctly, he is asking if they are just the designers and they need to outsource development of the app, basically. So what would you advise, and are you going to be able even to consider them for investment? Maybe you can answer, maybe? Yeah.
All right, if I understood correctly, you're asking if you're not the developers but the designer, if it's still, if you can still be funded. Okay, so the answer is that outsourcing of the development, it's a bit problem, but if the IP is clean and you all own it, that won't be a problem. Of course, when the company are growing up, the best thing is to have your own technology and to have all the IPs. But in the beginning, when you don't have the money to have your own developers, so yes, you can take it outsourcing, but you have to make sure the IP is clean, that you have the contract, that all the IPs are yours, all right? Because when we will come to invest in your company, this is the first thing that we want to see, that the IP is clean, all right?
Okay, other questions? Csaba, you wanted to comment on this one, I think?
Yeah, actually, one side of the story is the IP, and I think the other side of the story is the reliability of a team. So I mean, if we have outside contractors, we do fear that they are maybe not reliable because they have other things to do. So I mean, maybe it's not sure that they are able to keep up that speed that you require in order to be on the market. Right. So our aim is really just to have at least a core team inside. Certainly, I mean, if you are a mobile developer, maybe you have iOS developer in-house. Maybe Android you would outsource or other way around. But still, some of the technical capabilities also should have within the team. So I mean, for us, it means that if you are founder, kind of the CEO, then we would like to see a technical team with the CTO as well to be on board.
At least when you come to Csaba and his face, yeah. When you came to ask a lot of money, then at least the core competency should be inside of the company.
Exactly.
Yeah. Before, it can be vice versa. I think for the grant is not necessary. Yes, Boris? Yeah. You don't care much. Okay. One more question.
Hello, everyone. I'm glad to be here. This question is
stand up.
Oh, sorry.
Good.
Question is for all of you. It's actually going back to the first communication with a potential investor. It's the first email or the first contact with any potential investor. What does that look like? How does that be?
Don't send a cold email to the potential investor. That's my idea. Probably you have some other comments.
Yes.
Actually, we are replying all of the mails. We have a principle. So if we get a cold email, we are read it and we are going to certainly reply. Certainly, it's much better if you come through a recommendation, or we can meet you on a conference or a startup competition, a pitching day, or something similar. But actually, we really do answer everything. I mean, we just recently made the statistics that we have 12 companies in our portfolio. In order to get that 12 companies, we got 2,800 approaches It includes one email and this kind of things, and we also analyzed more than 200 business plans in order to get this 12 investments. So I mean, simply we cannot afford that luxury that we are not reading every email that we get. Actually, we have one portfolio company that came from a cold email. so it happens that a cold email can be something which is really interesting.
But as Anna said, community is very important. Maybe you want to add something?
Yeah, as I just said in my lecture, of course, the best thing is to get to the investor through his reliable people, but you don't always have it, this pleasure. So if you do that, would be great. But if not, yes, emails. You can write email. Try to be unique. Just say something funny or something that we can remember you. And yeah, it works because an investment company or VC, they want to get these emails. One of them can be the next Waze, can be the next Google. You don't know. So yes, we give respect for each emails, and sometimes we missed opportunities.
Yeah,
you're right.
Yeah, and I think it's very important that in a way, I mean, you should be unique in a way that it's just not to be too funny, because then sometimes it doesn't work.
In Israel it works.
Yeah, okay. But if you have a good pitch, a short video, for example, that really helps, because then it shows at least that you put some efforts into that idea, and you are really working with that what you want to do.
Okay, our time is up, but I would use my power as a moderator to have the last sentence, regardless of what they said. They said in the beginning that mostly they would go through somebody else. You have to approach them on the conferences. If you want some certain investors, it's much better to see what conferences they are going to attend, where their scouts are going. So try to be there. It's much better. Of course, you can also play lotto. So sometimes you would win. Cold mailing is pretty much the same. So sometimes they would see you, because I have heard many investors, they get millions and thousands of emails. So you are not going to be so easy to stand in front of all this bench. So our time is up. One big applause for our panelists. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, esteemed panelists, for sharing your know-how, knowledge, and experience with our audience. And thank you very much, Sasha, for beautifully moderating the panel. And thank you to all of you who asked questions. So before the second panel, which is going to be on initial coin offering and, of course, that kind of cryptocurrencies. Hello, thank you, thank you, thank you. A bit of intermezzo. And while we're going to watch intermezzo, let me just ask the last rows, is everything okay with the sound with you guys? Can you hear everything? What's going on the stage? Because there are some people in the lounge having meetings and talking, so if they're interfering with what you're trying to hear that comes here from the stage, there are plenty of seats that are available and free here in the front row, so feel free to take them and just change your positions. And now you'll have a couple of minutes before the second panel, which is going to be moderated by Mr. Prpic, we're going to see a video. The video is from Zagreb Developing Agency. Watch out, watch out. Razvojna agencija grada Zagreba. And yeah, we're very happy to see it. So it's a Raza video. Yeah. So a lot of people coming there, a lot of things happening, and not any of the people from the last rows decided to change their seats. So everything is really fine with the sound, guys? Okay, thank you so much for the thumbs up. Now you're going to have your thumbs up for the second panel. I already said it's about ICO, initial coin offering, and it's going to be moderated by a man you must have met already somewhere. If not in person, then you must have read something about him or saw him anywhere in the media. So he's also a board member of Crane and a famous Croatian investor. Let's give it up for Hrvoje Prpić, who is going to introduce his panelists. So, Hrvoje, the stage is yours, the floor is yours. We're looking forward to your 30-minute panel. Yes, please.
Well, this is the only mic I have. Thank you very much. My pants are zipped, so I would like to call Ivan, Mislav, and Nikola to join me on the stage. Thank you. Hello, guys. So while they're making their mics on, I would like to introduce you what we're going to talk about today. So many of you heard about Bitcoin. You don't know, some of you heard about blockchain technology. Today we're going to go a little bit more advanced. So as the topic is very complicated, I would suggest you to listen to very carefully every single word. And we're going to try to speak very basically, keep all the information technology very low. So the first question is to Ivan. Just 2 years ago, you were just an average broker in an average company. So what happened since then?
Well, for the last 2 years, many things all changed. With discovery of the Bitcoin and the blockchain technology, I just decided to leave my job and go fully into the blockchain. Within that time, I've been investigating the market prices, the ICOs, investments.
What made you to invest? I mean, what happened? I mean, you probably saw some papers, documents, so...
Yeah, so the way is that the thing I saw is just a pattern from the technical analysis called old highs, new lows. And this is the pattern I saw on the Bitcoin price. Then I was just shocked how pure and how, it looked like the same in the books, how they read it. And then I gave the papers to my brother, who is a technical guy. And then he told me that this is just a mathematical innovation, that this is just a disruptive thing he ever read. And since it has something to do with the pricing and with the coins called Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, I just saw a huge opportunity to get in that market and to do something for myself, for the environment around me, and with my investments, of course.
So how many times that Bitcoin, how much the Bitcoin raised since the time you invested in?
Yeah, well, I've invested, my first buys were around $230.
And today it's almost 12,000,
yeah.
Right?
Almost $13,000.
So it's like 60 times, 50?
I don't know. I don't count. I stopped
that is
counting,
a good guess,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, the problem is that when you get in that market, you just discover these other cryptocurrencies where you can trade. But the thing is that when you trade cryptocurrencies, you trade them with the Bitcoin. And then you earn more Bitcoins while trading them, because if you do have good
just to explain our audience, so there are many different cryptocurrencies, not just Bitcoin,
yeah.
Right? So Bitcoin was the first one, and today Ivan will give you 3 wallets.
No, two wallets were prepared.
2 wallets,
yeah.
2 wallets filled with, which one? What cryptocurrency?
Well, we're giving away Lisk cryptocurrency. It's a cryptocurrency for JavaScript developers. And it's a proof-of-stake cryptocurrency, which means that the more stake in that cryptocurrency you have, the bigger voting power in that network it is for you. And the thing is that we're going to give you a seed for that cryptocurrency with my Twitter profile. And you can just get that seed, open your wallet, and the first who arranges that thing, he can transfer them to a new wallet on the Lisk platform, and he will earn 11 Lisk, and one Lisk is at this time priced around $8.50, so it's around
so we are talking about $100, right?
$90 per wallet. So basically you can grab them, and if you have a friend, you can share it with your friend. You can give him, I don't know, 2 or 3 of those cryptocurrencies and so on. The reason why we are doing this is just to show you that the only thing you need to understand with cryptocurrencies is that you own them, and there is no one after you who owns that cryptocurrency. So basically, when you install your wallet and you put your cryptocurrency in your wallet, there is no bank who is holding your wallet. You know, you are in control of your seed. Hold
on. We'll talk about it later.
Yeah.
Don't spoil the story.
Okay. Sorry.
Okay. So Ivan will now tweet 2 private keys on that wall there, and if you want, you can take that money. It's yours. So who's going to be the first one? That person will collect the money. So there are not just bitcoins. So there is a story that says that when shoeshine boys start to talk about stocks, it's time to sell. So today, not just shoeshine boys buy bitcoins. I would like to raise hands. Who of you have ever bought a Bitcoin or any other different cryptocurrency? As you can see, turn around, keep the hands up. So as you can see, turn around, not many of you are still bought any of the cryptocurrencies, so there is still plenty of opportunity. But today we're going to talk about Ethereum. That's another platform. Some people call it Bitcoin 2.0. Mislav, could you please tell us more about Ethereum and why Ethereum, and do you think that Ethereum is more important than Bitcoin?
Well, this is a contentious topic, to be sure. Some people, in my opinion, Ethereum is a more advanced platform than Bitcoin, and in the most simple words possible, Bitcoin is a platform for making monetary transactions. So I can pay people for goods and services, and Ethereum is a platform for making complex monetary transactions. So the difference between Bitcoin and Ethereum is that you can program an Ethereum transaction. So let's say you want the transaction of a payment to some person to happen after 6 people have approved that transaction. So you write something that's called a smart contract, which actually encapsulates the data of this desire to have 6 people sign the transaction. You deploy the smart contract on the Ethereum network, and without those 6 people you've appointed to create the transactions, it's actually impossible to make the transaction. So the more complex and more nuanced transactions are possible with the Ethereum platform.
Okay, we have to try to be simple. I don't think that most people understand us, so let's try a little bit less complex. So we all heard about initial public offer or IPOs. There is not many IPOs. I made an IPO here in Croatia, and I was the only one of the 2 people who made it, and thousands of different companies never succeeded. Of course, when you invest in a company, or you're the owner of the company, sometimes you want to sell part of your shares. So today, we have a solution for that, and it's called ICO, or initial coin offer. Ivan, could you please tell us more about what is an ICO, or what's initial coin offer?
So basically, ICO is just a public offering for financing a product, or financing a project, or financing an idea, or anything you can imagine on the internet publicly through the blockchain tokens. So anyone in the world can just write a piece of paper and explain his ideas, and if he has enough credibility, if he has good people around him who can support him, who can give him good visibility on the market, he can publish those papers with ideas, with some, let's say, with some proposals, what should be funded, and what is he going to develop with this project. He can publish his private keys his public keys, sorry, to raise the money. And then anyone who has cryptocurrency can just donate money and in return get the token that he described in his paper, what is this whole idea about. So basically you can have different various tokens for this kind of actions. You have utility-based tokens, you have equity-based tokens, and you have protocol tokens. So protocol tokens are something like Bitcoin, Ethereum, and so on. Utility-based, those are the tokens that give an opportunity to investors to do something for that project. Let's say to put some information from the real world into blockchain world. And equity-based tokens, so basically you can tokenize anything you want on the blockchain and provide this kind of ICO on the market.
Okay, so Nicola, could you please tell us what your company does?
We exchange Bitcoin for real money and Ethereum for real money. So we run a Bitcoin brokerage. It's not an exchange where you have to register yourself, send a bunch of documents as you are some serious investor. You just go to our website, you enter amount of Bitcoins or Ethereum you want to buy. We give you our bank account number. You send us money, we send you Bitcoin, and that's it, or Ethereum. So that's what we do.
But also vice versa, right?
Yes, also vice versa, yes.
So,
oh yeah, the price is up. So if you want to sell your Bitcoins, you can also do it the easy way. Instead of registering to an exchange, going through the tedious process of 5 days of verification, in which period the price might go down, you just go to our website and do it in like 15 minutes, something like that.
So when we, as investors, invest in a company in an ICO, how quickly can we get the money back? If we decide to sell, how quickly can we get the money back?
Well, so when you invest in an ICO, you get a token. In the ICO phase, token is usually still not existent. When the ICO finishes, then you usually get tokens. To be able to sell them, they have to be listed on an exchange. We are not an exchange, we are brokerage. So there are several big exchanges in the world, and the ICO organizers have to contact those exchanges and list their coins there. So you would be able to sell those tokens you received in an ICO for some well-known cryptocurrency as Ethereum or Bitcoin. So then when you sell those tokens on the exchange, you get to us with your Bitcoins, and we exchange them to euros or Croatian kunas or whatever.
So we are talking about days, not years, like in classical investment when we invest in a startup and then we go through the company register house, and then when we have to find seller, and all the way. So we are talking about days, not years. Right?
Yes, that is correct. The crucial part here is if the ICO succeeds, if it gets traction, then exchanges will be very interested to list the coin on their exchange because the token will see some action. So here we are talking, I don't know, about weeks, something like that, to be able to list to the ICO showrunners to be able to list their coin on the exchange. When it's listed, then it's 20 minutes, depends on how fast you click on your screen. But if the ICO does not succeed, if the token is not as popular, then the guys running the ICO might experience issues with listing their token on a well-known exchange. So then you end up with tokens which you cannot sell. Which is probably the same in the mainstream investment industry. If you have a company which nobody wants to buy, well, then you're just stuck with equity.
Of course. So, Misav, you're only 22 now, right?
Yes.
So, when was the first time you got in contact with Bitcoin or blockchain technology?
Well, first time I got in contact was actually back in 2011.
Wow.
I was.
So you were minor. You were a minor.
Actually, didn't mine anything. I had a wallet.
No, I mean you were a minor.
Yes, and I downloaded a wallet because some people were talking about it on the Bug Online forum, and they mentioned it. I downloaded it. I didn't understand the thing, and I said, "Wow, this is not useful at all." Just close the program. And then somewhere in the middle of 2016, I discovered it again. First I discovered Bitcoin, and it was, oh really, this is super. And then I went to the CoinMarketCap website and went to see all the other coins which are listed. And I saw this project called Ethereum. And since I'm a software developer by trade...
How old was the project at that moment?
How
old was the project at that
Well,
moment?
the Ethereum project was around 2 or 3 years old at the time. So the price was much lower than now, and the exposure of the project was significantly lower. So I saw that it was a blockchain you can program. So if any software developers are here, if you want to build your software projects on a blockchain, Ethereum is one of the options you should consider. And that's how I actually got interested, not as a trader, not as an investor, but as a programmer trying to build applications.
So we can say there are two different platforms. One which is usually used for selling or buying things, and the other one is for smart contracts or programming or something much more advanced, right? We have now that CryptoKitty game that holds, what, 13% of the market?
Yes, currently I think it's around 20% of the
20%
gas
of
price.
the whole world market are kitties right now.
Yes.
So blockchain is going to be populated by kitties.
Yes. Well, I mean, the thing is, it all depends what your background is. I think there is something for everyone to find. If you're a person trying to make an exchange like Nikola, or if you're a ex-broker like Ivan here, you can do that. But if you're a software developer and if you're not comfortable with dealing with money and kind of investing, tracking trends, yeah, you can just geek out. You know, build your own projects, kind of make your own coin,
and make your own ICO, right?
Yes. Well, if you're doing an ICO, then you have to start worrying about money. But before that, you can just play around. I'm just trying to paint the picture that you can kind of, you don't have to worry about money right away. First, you can play around, kind of experience the space, and then, if you're comfortable, go in the money.
Make Hello World.
Yes, make a Hello World application.
Okay. Ivan, you would like to join to mention something?
Yeah, Mislav said everything correct, but there is just one thing everyone needs to understand, and that is the supply and demand of these cryptocurrencies. In order to develop something on Ethereum, you need to have Ether as cryptocurrency. You cannot develop on Ethereum using dollars or kunas or euros or bitcoins or something like that. You need to use Ethereum cryptocurrency in order to develop on Ethereum. You have there 10, 11 Lisk cryptocurrencies. You can take them. There's around $90. You can right now go on the website, download the wallet, and use this seed and get yourself around $90, I think, something like that. And in order to develop something on the Lisk platform, you will need to use these Lisk tokens. This is just like imagine it like a corporation. And this corporation uses only their own money in order to build or to sell their products, or in order to get in the business with them, you need to use their tokens.
But there are many exchanges that can change all different altcoins for bitcoins and then get back to Nikola and his company, and you can get your paper money if you are willing, if you are focused more to paper money than to coins, right? So, Mislav, today Silicon Valley is like a single local location for most of the successful software industries, right? Software companies. What is the situation in crypto world? Are there any locations in the world that are making central position for crypto developers? Blockchain developers.
So the countries that are making the central progress in the cryptocurrency development world are those that have not only a loose regulation, but a well-established regulatory framework around building companies which use cryptocurrencies. Currently, the forerunners are Switzerland and Singapore, and but concretely, the developers are all around the world, but mostly their companies are incorporated in countries like Switzerland and even our neighbors, Slovenia. They are making huge progress with regulating and allowing crypto world to kind of flourish.
So we can say that regulations are more important than money
Yes.
In exchange, what happened before, right? So when we had Stanford University as a point of technology, and then we had educated people from there, and then that's the reason why Silicon Valley was founded. I mean, not just founded, I mean, for the success. Today, the regulation is the biggest problem,
yes.
Right? So, Nicola, you have problems with banks, right? So what happened with your company and the banks in your bank account?
Well, yes. So it's all nice on the outside, you know. Switzerland, Slovenia, Estonia, Singapore is a bit far for us. We've been to all of those countries and to look for a bank account, because what we do, we need a bank account. That's our.
What was the revenue for the last month of your company?
7 million euros. So,
7 million euros. So the last month, not
November,
the year.
Yeah, that's. Yeah, that's quite small on the scale you people are investing, but for a Bitcoin brokerage, that's solid. Yeah. So we went to all of those countries to ask for a bank account, since they are supporting blockchain technologies, and it seems that banks just didn't get the memo. You know. We have real issues in finding a bank account in Slovenia, and Miro Cerar, Slovenian Prime Minister, was public on television 2 months and a half ago, telling us about Slovenia being the next Silicon Valley of blockchain. But yeah, when you try to implement something, when you try to talk to the banks, okay, I'm sure that state is quite supportive. They are writing their blockchain law, which is great. They are going to regulate everything.
We are talking about Slovenia.
We are talking about Slovenia, yes. We can talk about Switzerland. They also have they have what they actually call a Silicon Valley of blockchain Europe in Zug. Ivan was in Zug a few days ago. He can tell you more about it. When you try to talk to banks there, you also have issues. So we have to separate the state support for blockchain technologies, for cryptocurrencies, and the corporations that turn over money, which is banks. And to do what I do, in my line of business, banks are much more important than states. So yeah, the more important questions would be in which countries the banks support the blockchain. And the answer to that question, well, if you know it, I would like to know. I've been.
So the banks are kicking you out from
oh, yes.
so closing your accounts, right?
Yes, yes,
so,
yes.
But there is also some banks also invest in cryptocurrencies, right?
No, we have to differentiate between cryptocurrencies and blockchain, okay. Because cryptocurrencies are money. Blockchain is technology. Everybody is prepared to invest in technology. It doesn't bite you. You know, you can work with technology, you can produce something interesting, work with tokens, write smart contracts, nobody gets hurt. When you work with money, then you have a lot of risks, a lot of issues. Money laundering, KYC, know your customer policies are an issue, financing on terrorism. No bank wants to be the bank that sold bitcoins to somebody blowing themselves up. You don't have issues like that if you build a smart contract. That's why everybody wants to build smart contracts. But if you, as I said, if you sell bitcoins to a terrorist, you have issues. That's why nobody wants to provide us with a bank account. So we have this, discrepancy between cryptocurrencies and the blockchain.
So we can say that terrorism is holding us behind the whole economy just because we are so afraid of terrorists?
No, because terrorists do not use blockchain. There's a European Commission report on that. Terrorists use cash. Drug smugglers use cash. People smugglers use cash. Nobody knows how to. Those guys don't know how to use a wallet.
Not a single person in Africa didn't pay for transfer to Europe in
exactly.
Bitcoins, right?
But the fact that the risk exists makes it quite easier to show us the doors. People dealing with cash, banks cannot throw them out because everybody uses cash. So the fact that cash is used for terrorist financing doesn't mean anything because everybody needs to use cash. The fact that cryptocurrencies could be used for terrorist financing, it's not. But it could, and banks do not need to work with cryptocurrencies. We are not that big at the moment. Means it's easier for them just to show us the door. We don't want to work with that. There is a potential for the terrorist financing, anti-money laundering. so they don't want to work with us. We tell them that's not a viable solution. We have to find a solution. Well, they think it's easier just to ignore the problem until I think it hits them in the face, because cryptocurrencies will not disappear. You can postpone the solution, but you cannot ignore it. So we'll be talking about this in
but
few years'
there's
time.
some problems in the US and China, right? These two countries, people from these two countries cannot invest in ICOs.
Yes,
are they getting behind because of that? These two countries, are they slowing down that particular part of the technology because of the regulations?
Yeah, well, first, it's quite hard to regulate ICOs. Now, I would like to separate ICOs from the previous problem I talked about. So the previous problem was buying and selling cryptocurrencies. Investment in ICOs is a wholly separate problem, because the main issue here is you start an ICO, you promise to do a lot of things, people give you money, and then you disappear. So that's the main issue with ICOs. If you do an IPO...
But that can happen with startups too, right?
Yes.
You can invest in a startup and then people can disappear. We never know.
Of course, but you sign contracts, you have an army of lawyers who will then sue those people that disappear, they will find them. Okay, yes, the truth is people can disappear with money from an IPO.
That's a limited company, so...
Yeah, but it's much easier to disappear with the money from an ICO. And that is, that's the reason why countries are trying to regulate ICOs, which I think is great. Because right now, the general opinion of people doing ICO is, well, we can promise anything, we can get the money, and then if we do not show up with results, well, I mean, it's an ICO, it's not a serious investment, you know. That's not true. I mean, I'm not sure if those people running scamming ICOs realize that, but they can be sued. They will end up in jail. They received money from somebody, disappeared with the money. If the fact that it's cryptocurrency, not fiat money, does not mean they can simply escape with it. You know, people will find them, the authorities will find them. That's why I think that regulation, lightweight regulation of ICOs, is a good thing, just to show to investors and to people running ICOs, this is real money. Cryptocurrencies are not play money. And if you invest in an ICO, you are investing real money.
Okay. Mislav, you would like to...
I have only one addendum. Currently, this is the situation, but I think, and I also agree with Nikola, light regulation is necessary to create a healthy investment market. But what I think can also be done with cryptocurrencies and ICOs, since they're so programmable, and we have some examples as of late of this, so you can program the fund returns if the investors vote that they don't trust the project anymore. So the thing with the thing I think would be the healthiest is for the community to come up with quality regulations before regulators start coming up with regulations. Because if we don't regulate ourselves, somebody will, and when they do it, they'll probably not do as good of a job.
Okay, so the whole technology is so young, but it has so much possibilities that it can be programmed, the whole...
Yes, you can program...
The whole game, the whole rules of the whole game.
Yes, you can actually program that
advance.
If the investors don't trust the project anymore, all unspent money is instantly returned to investors. So,
there is one solution that is coming in the market in the beginning of the next year, and it's called Waves Community Tokens, and they will be used as a voting power for ICOs on the Waves platform. So basically, owners of these first mentioned tokens, Waves Community Tokens, will vote among the dispersion of ICOs, and they will vote and say, okay, this should go to ICO, this not, this yes, this not. And this is done with a partnership with Deloitte, so they have some reputation with that. And from my perspective, when you have this collective due diligence of the people investigating and doing let's say, voting on the ICOs, should they be funded or not. This is the first step through the decentralized regulation of the ICOs. And from my point of view, this is the future.
As we only have 1.5 minutes, Ivan, have you ever invested in an ICO?
Yes.
In how many?
Are there any regulators here? No, I don't know, 5, 10.
5. But what was the biggest gain of any of your investments?
Yeah.
I know that Nicola got what?
Maybe times 50 or something like
50
that.
times. And Nicola,
In Bitcoin, in Bitcoin.
no, I'm not talking about Bitcoin. I'm talking about ICOs. Oh, in Bitcoin. Okay. Oh my God,
Bitcoin,
that's a lot.
and then Bitcoin is returned x50,
so
and then
50 times on top of Bitcoin.
Yeah, but when you invest 0.1 Bitcoin in that
Okay,
kind of
I know, but that's a good one, right? 0.1 to 5 Bitcoins
nice,
today would be really nice to have.
Yeah.
And you, Nicola?
Well, this guy is a professional broker.
Okay. But you maybe
I just got lucky. You know?
Yeah, of course.
And not as lucky as him. So my best return was 20-fold in fiat. But I invested like 500 euros just for
show. That's fine. I mean, if you play with just a little bit, it's more fun then.
Yeah, I primarily am not an investor type of guy. I'm adverse to risk, which is funny because I'm in crypto industry. Yes, but I'm quite risk adverse. I just like to, work and get returns instead of trying to, figure out who's gonna succeed and place my money on them.
And Mislav, you, last question.
Yeah, well, I think my best return was around 20-30x in fiat. Well, we're not investors, so we're not talking in Bitcoin returns.
So you see investors, 20 times, 30 times, that's a good one, right? Not like in startups. So, yeah. So thank you. Thank you very much for having us here. And
yeah, thank you for everything. This was so interesting. Thank you to our panelists. Good luck. We wish you even more success, and thank you very much, Hrvoje, for moderating this panel. Unfortunately, 35 minutes went by so fast that we don't have enough time for a Q&A session right now. But what we can recommend to anybody who has any additional questions is that you approach these wonderful, successful gentlemen during the lunch break and ask them those questions in person, which might be even better if they reveal any secrets. So thank you once again, gentlemen. You may take your seats.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Probably the most popular guys in the room right now. So, next up, we have a keynote speech. Miss Julie Meyer, she is the CEO and founder of Ariadne Capital, an investment firm that she founded in 2000 with 62 leading technology entrepreneurs. She has backed explosive growth companies such as Skype, Zopa, Monetize, and done over 875 million pounds of investment. That's not it. In 2016, she has acquired Portoculus Assessment Management and has taken to market a $1 billion AUM investment platform, Europe's first multi-manager venture capital investment platform. Please welcome to the stage Julie Meyer.
Thanks very much. Hello, good morning. It's great to be back in Zagreb. This is my third time just this year. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we're doing. Entrepreneur Country, less so about Ariadne Capital, but I'm happy to talk to you about Ariadne Capital, which is how we back some of the most important and impressive entrepreneurs, which is the whole reason why I set up Ariadne Capital. Ariadne Capital is a group of entrepreneurs that are backing entrepreneurs. But let me take you back to the year 2009 for just a moment. Did anybody have a really fantastic, exceptional year in 2009? Anybody? Not really. Well, we have worked with over 1,000 entrepreneurs from Helsinki to Sofia, from Madrid to Dublin, and universally, it was kind of a crap year in 2009. And as the person who, in many cases, was on the boards of these companies, sometimes carrying their bags, going to conferences, trying to help these entrepreneurs who were fighting the good fight to stay afloat, I realized how little the rest of the world understood about what it meant to be an entrepreneur. I realized that, in fact, entrepreneurs go to a different place every day. And the average person, great as they may be doing whatever they're doing, the average person in society doesn't have any idea what it means to carry the load of being an entrepreneur. And so I decided that we should build a place for those entrepreneurs. Because in fact, they're going to a different place every day, so why don't we help them all go to the same place so that they can work together, share wisdom, and so forth. What I did is I issued a global invitation to that place called Entrepreneur Country, Today, Entrepreneur Country is a group of 312,000 citizens, early adopters, entrepreneurs. You can go to entrepreneurcountry.com and become a citizen. Hopefully you won't just be a tourist or a resident. And my very good friend Ivo Spiegel, with whom I've known for 20 years, is one of the big reasons why I come back to Zagreb so much. Super cool guy, wonderful partner, is helping me rebuild the website, the community of Entrepreneur Country, out of Zagreb to the world. Thank you, Ivo. Absolutely. So I wrote a book about the invitation, which I hope that you will pick up and read. But this is where we're going to start, really. That is the face of every entrepreneur. That is the face, I have to admit, of myself as well. Because the harder you tell me something is, the more you tell me I'll never achieve it, the more you tell me I should really have a plan B and a plan C because plan A is just simply not going to work, the more I don't say anything. I say, you just watch. You just watch. I'll let you know when I get it done. So that is the face of every entrepreneur. But the reason why all of us in this room, and in fact all of us in Zagreb and all of us in Croatia and all of us in Europe should be caring about that little guy, is not just because it is the passion and the persistence that drives all of us to achieve and do exceptional things. The real reason why we should care about that little guy is these two things. Entrepreneurs see the future. They go to a different country every day. They live in the future. By virtue of whatever happened to them, who they are, etc., they see things that other people don't yet see. And they live in that reality where for them, it's all about just making it seen by everybody else in the world. So they see what is inevitable. They have a feel for where the world is going. But that's not the real reason why we should all care about that little guy. The second reason is the reason why we all need to care and we all need to help the entrepreneur, is because entrepreneurs are willing to live abnormal lives. They're not conventional people. They're willing to live abnormal lives. And those abnormal lives came under an unbelievable amount of stress and pressure in the financial downturn, where the usual gap between how entrepreneurs have to work to drive things forward and how little society understands about their central role became so vast. But the simple fact of the matter is that entrepreneurs are willing to live abnormal lives, and they see what's inevitable, and they work to make that happen. So the guiding principle of Ariadne Capital and of Entrepreneur Country is that society works best when it's organized around the entrepreneur. Society works best when it's organized around the entrepreneur. That's not to say that we don't want the fireman to show up at 3 o'clock in the morning because he's out being an entrepreneur. But the point is that it's quite clear to me, and hopefully you'll agree, that the social contract has been shattered. Whatever was here 5-10 years ago is in a profound state of being rebuilt. And in Zagreb and in Croatia and in Europe, it is being redefined by its entrepreneurs, because entrepreneurs are first and foremost problem solvers. People think that it's about people wanting to be their own boss or making money. First and foremost, entrepreneurs are people who are driven by an incredible obsession with solving a problem that they think they have the answer to. And that is why it's so important to put them at the heart of society, because when they do, all of the positive things happen as a result of them being at the center of society. Now, this has been understood for years and years. You'll understand the great Machiavelli said years ago, hundreds and hundreds of years ago, there's nothing more difficult to take in hand, more perilous to conduct, or more uncertain in its success than to take the lead in the introduction of a new order of things. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been warned. This is not easy. Do anything else that you can do if you can, other than be an entrepreneur. Don't think that it's like some sort of gold rush, a la 20% returns on Bitcoins for buying something and so forth. Honestly, if you can feel good about it, working for an entrepreneur or working in an innovative company, go do it and have a great life, because it is really difficult to be an entrepreneur. You might be wildly successful, you might have to do it 2 or 3 times before you are, and you might never be successful. There is no guarantee. But if you can't do it. If you are obsessed with a problem, if you're willing to live an abnormal life and you are convinced that you see what's inevitable, then get your personal life in order and find some great people to make something great happen. Now, a little bit of a history lesson here. Capital follows ideas. It always has and it always will. A lot of people think it's the other way around, that somehow entrepreneurs are supplicants for cash. And I see that when people come into Ariadne Capital, I see them, entrepreneurs, I see them looking for money, and I see that they have forgotten that actually they are the purveyor of the opportunity. They're bringing to Ariadne Capital an opportunity. The financial services industry is not an industry. It's a service industry to industry. Our job as the financiers, as the venture capitalists, is to support entrepreneurs. And that's what got messed up and mixed up in the financial downturn, is that the money started to think it was all about the money, that we could recreate industries by throwing money at them. Industries do not get recreated or redefined by money. It is by the entrepreneur's problem solving and passion and understanding of the instincts of new consumer behaviors. That's what changes industry. And so we have to remember that capital follows ideas. Capital follows ideas. It always has, it always will. Christopher Columbus was in search of the New World. Queen Isabella put him on a bit of a retainer to get a piece of the upside. We remember Christopher Columbus. We remember the New World. Same thing with the Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci. The entrepreneurs, whether they've been called entrepreneurs or artists, industrialists, whatever they've been called, that center of ingenuity, the creator, the problem solver in society has always been there. And they've always been backed, whether it's the Medici family or Queen Isabella or Ariadne Capital or any other financier, they've been backed along the way by people who believed in them first and then shared some money with them. Now, how many of you have heard of Carlota Perez in this audience? Any Carlota Perez readers? Okay, well, after you read my book, Welcome to Entrepreneur Country, you'll read her book, which is called The Theory of Disruptive Technology and Adoption. Carlota Perez is a Venezuelan economist who went out to Silicon Valley in 1971 to study oil. As you do, if you're a Venezuelan economist, you study oil. And she was amazed at what she saw happening in 1971 in Silicon Valley, because that's when the Intel microprocessor burst into the consciousness, and she started to see everything change. It was like a big bang, a huge disruptive force, and she could see what was going to happen. And she wrote a book called The Theory of Disruptive Technology and Adoption, which I'm going to tell you about in just a moment. It leads me to the next conclusion that I want to share with you, is that today we are not in a moment of disruptive technology. We're in a moment where the majority of what's happening in the world today is the empire is striking back. Leaving aside all of the interesting things happening in blockchain technology and so forth, the big, big, big thing that's happening right now is that the empire is striking back. So Carlota Perez very helpfully looked at the past 300 years for all of us so that we don't have to do it. And what she found is that there have been 5 different cycles, 5 different periods of time of 60 to 80 years where there has been a big bang, a disruptive technology, a series of derivative technologies, a financial crisis where the world shifts and the money is trying to make money out of the money, and then a second half of the cycle where the empire strikes back and embeds those new derivative technologies in large industry. So if we just go back, you can see in that third column there that those disruptive technologies have emerged from different countries. And they will, it could be that in the next cycle it emerges out of Zagreb or out of Beijing. But there's no reason why it has to continue to emerge in any one place, because it is a moment of fundamental disruption, true fundamental disruption, as opposed to derivative technologies that build on it. And you can see that there is a cycle of 60 to 80 years. And so the good news is that none of us have to be the smartest person in the room. None of us have to understand the cosmos. What we have to understand is that history repeats itself. The same thing happens again and again. And so what's important as you build your businesses, what's important in terms of how you decide to engage and to play into this great digital transformation which is happening, is to understand where we are in the cycle. Now, interestingly, Carlotta also makes a social point. She says that the difference between 60 and 80 years, due to her research, is whether society is having the right conversation with itself. If just a small group of people really understand what's going on and fear the future, and they don't support the entrepreneurs that are going to entrepreneur country every day, and they're really trying to hold on to the present and say, we like it this way, we don't want all of that disruption and automation and technology, let's live simple lives, let's not embrace the future. Actually, what happens is that the future does take longer and more inequality results because some people understand what's going on. If you want to have prosperity rip through society, you actually want to have the biggest part of society embrace the future to get to a new common sense at a shorter period of time so that everybody enjoys the benefits of these new economies, these new operating models, these new technologies. So now I have a disclosure for you. I'm just really a girl from Palo Alto. I've spent 30 years in Europe. I came over to Paris at age 21, just age 21. I had exactly $1,000 to my name. I remember my father walking me as I was walking to the airplane to get onto the plane for Paris. He turned around and he said to my stepmother, he didn't think I had heard him, and he said, "Don't worry, Linda, she'll be back soon. She doesn't have that much money." And I said to him, I said, "Is that what you think? You think that I need your money? Is that really honestly what you think?" I said, "I will stay over there for my entire life and I will never go back." And that is exactly what has happened. And I have stayed in Europe because I have found the quality of the opportunities simply amazing, incredible entrepreneurs. And I'm here to tell you, as a girl from Palo Alto, you don't need to go to Palo Alto. It's true that people in Palo Alto, whether they're Americans or people who go to Palo Alto, have a pretty good ability to communicate that they are at ground zero, that they've got the digital playbook codified, they understand it, and to be anybody, you got to go to Palo Alto. And I'm here to tell you, you don't need to go to Palo Alto. You need to go to entrepreneur country. So here's 3 quick versions of the future. The first version of the future is that, and you would be absolutely kind of understood if you thought, well, I have to just basically accept the fact that the Googles, the Facebooks, the Amazons, the large Silicon Valley businesses are going to take over, and that they're creating all the value. They're going to become the new sovereign states. And what they're doing matters more, and it's kind of game over. Really, it's game over at this point. And that's the first version of the future, but I don't subscribe to it. I have cousins and friends and all sorts of that work in those companies, and they're incredibly fine institutions, but they're not actually the future that I see. And actually, the second version of the future, that the kind of baby brothers, the up-and-comers, the Ubers and the Airbnbs that are also worth 50, 100 billion and so forth, of all sorts of funny money, even as they are transforming industries, that there's about 25, maybe 100 of these companies, and that's the future that we're all going to play out. But the future that I see is actually one of David and Goliath dancing. I see a room full of Davids here, and I've met a couple of people working in Goliath businesses. And the question that I asked myself in 2009, when I said, we need to build a country for all of these entrepreneurs to connect with, the second question I asked myself was, what happens to the rest of the universe, which is not the Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Google, Ubers, and so forth. 99% of the universe are just simple, traditional, conventional, established companies that have just been going on and on doing whatever they've been doing. And I said, what happens to them? Do they just all go bankrupt as a result of this disruptive technology that's happening? And I said pretty quickly, clearly they don't. That cycle, that 60 to 80-year cycle that Carlota Perez spoke about, clearly there's some companies that make it to the next cycle because they're fit, because they engage with the entrepreneurs, they embed and embrace the derivative technologies, because the Goliaths understand that the Davids, the entrepreneurs, go to the future every day, and they walk backwards and bring those solutions to the present. And the smart Goliaths, the smart shipping companies and retailers and insurance companies and those large conventional businesses, the smart ones know that they have to more than hang out with the Davids and the entrepreneurs. They have to understand their proper role as problem solvers and purveyors of the future. And so the future that I see is that third version, that David and Goliath are going to dance. Now, this is pretty obvious for all of you in the room, that the platforms are making all the money, that most of the things that we will invest in through our fund and our platform, most of the people that I've met, the entrepreneurs yesterday at the boot camp or today, are the application layers, the application companies, and that if you're an infrastructure, if you're a school, if you're a government, if you're a hospital, anything which touches ground, if you've got infrastructure that other people are using, if you don't figure out how to become a platform company, whereby you can make those digital revenues from having applications on top of yourself, then you're just getting run over. If you don't have a toll booth in there. And so there's a whole shaking up of the way society is working, and it comes from, again, what entrepreneurs do, the new digital revenues that they bring to the large companies, which remain still most of what happens in society. Now, here's another point that I want to leave with you today. I'm an American, I've worked in Europe for 30 years. I'm the baby of the family, and I think that I have that kind of subversive mentality that the later born children have. But I think that we do ourselves a massive discredit when we assume that as Europeans, and I think that after 30 years I might be able to say I'm a bit of a European too, we do ourselves a massive disservice if we just try to go to Palo Alto and if we just try to act like American entrepreneurs. We think, I believe, fundamentally different. And I think that's the problem of the European venture capital community, is that they're more or less just trying to be like the American venture capital community. We think fundamentally different. The opportunity is fundamentally different in Europe. I don't need to go through it because you all know what I mean. And I believe, if I had to say in one phrase what it is that Europe thinks like an eldest child. Nothing wrong with that. America thinks more like a later-born child. Now, if I try to be my sister, I'm going to be a second-rate Melanie. I can be a first-rate Julie, but I can never be a first-rate Melanie. I have to be what I am. And we have to embrace the unique opportunity that Europe can be. And here's the really interesting thing. At exactly the same time that the empire is striking back and embracing those enabling technologies, the Davids, those digital enablers that are representing the future and the change for the Goliaths, it makes it much easier, entre guillemets, is to actually make money from venture capital. We have a moment in European venture capital today where it can be not outsourced corporate R&D, but getting close. We can work to bring the Davids and the Goliaths together and to actually transform those large businesses in Europe because of the catalytic transformational effect of these enabling technologies. We're not trying to create the next Google, Facebook, Apple, Amazon. We're trying to create the platform enablers, the enabling technologies which will transform the existing businesses to help them become platforms. So every startup, every digital enabler, every entrepreneur that I've met yesterday and today has a customer acquisition problem. It was really easy to ask the questions yesterday because almost always we spend less time explaining that customer acquisition problem. And no venture capitalist is going to say, here's 50 million, go do a TV campaign or whatever. They're going to say, go find yourself a highway. Somebody else already has customers. Go throw yourself down their highway. And if they're smart, they will have already created a toll booth and a way of engaging with you. And the driver of that car is ourselves. It's not just that David and Goliath are dancing. It's not just that these digital cars creating new digital revenues for the highways, the Goliaths, that the cars are zooming down the highways. It's that the driver, each of us, our data is being used to power these new consumer behaviors. And that's where it gets really interesting. We created the David and Goliath model a couple of years ago, and we can plot every single transaction that we've done over 18 years. On Friday, Ariadne Capital will be 18 years old. We invest in the digital enablers who most of the time start in that pit of vulnerability because it's always difficult to set up a business no matter who you are, how many times you've done it. And they're trying to get across the grid. And the entrepreneurs know certain things about the future. They understand that it's about consumer data. They understand the network orientation, but they're at a profound and utter disadvantage unless they can actually get access to distribution, unless they can get access to consumers and to build revenues on the back of somebody else's consumer acquisition, their highway, and so forth. Now, when we worked with Skype, we were involved with Skype when there were 5 people, and I remember being in a panel not too dissimilar from this. And as somebody asked me what the hottest company that I was working with at the time, I mentioned Skype. And because of Nicholas Zenstrom's background, he was very well known already in 2003. And I remember the CEO of an incumbent telco interrupting me as I started to talk about Skype. And he said, "You're going to lose your shirt, and they're going to go bust, because let me tell you." And I said, "Let me tell you, you've decided to underestimate the entrepreneur who completely changed the telecoms industry, the music industry with Kazaa. Let me tell you, he is so happy that you've underestimated him. You've given him time to get across the grid." The reason why entrepreneurs sometimes make it to the other top right-hand corner is because the Goliaths systematically underestimate them. They systematically believe that the entrepreneur, even when they see that face of determination that I showed you at the beginning, even when they are told of they will go all the way and they will transform this industry, they're determined to bring that consumer benefit, entrepreneurs are underestimated constantly by the large companies who will throw them out of business at any chance that they can. And we see more and more examples of traditional businesses. This was just one example of Accor Hotels who bought One Fine Stay, a digital enabler, to compete with Airbnb. These David and Goliath acquisitions are happening all over the world in every country to compete with that second and first version of the future. What can you expect from Entrepreneur Country? If you engage with Entrepreneur Country, that Ivo and I and other of our partners around the world are going to build this community of 312,000 citizens, what you can expect is that you will have the tools to build your personal economies. Because not all of us are entrepreneurs, not all of us work in Goliath businesses, but all of us have something to give in playing into this digital opportunity. We all start with our own data, which in Entrepreneur Country we've established as a property right of the individual, and we're working to establish the individual as a legal actor in the digital transaction, which is not the case today. Europe is leading, but it's not yet that the individual is established as a legal actor in the digital transaction. And we're working to establish that Entrepreneur Country will give individuals the tools to help them build their personal economies through their data. Now, this has been a concept that has been talked about for many years. A very well-known entrepreneur, John Hagel, and researchers said way back 20 years ago, he said, "We believe that consumers are going to take ownership of information about themselves and demand value in exchange for it. As a result, negotiating with consumers for information will become costly and complex. That process has already begun to unfold, but it could take several years to play out across broad segments of customers and products." We intend to make that process not at all complex in Entrepreneur Country. And I ask you to please join us at Entrepreneur Country to work with us to actually make a worldwide system whereby people can use their data to contribute and to play into the digital opportunity. It's essentially a way we'll look back in years and we'll say, remember when you had no assets? You were working to get on the housing ladder. You didn't have a credit card. You didn't have a property. And now we're going to enable people who become citizens of Entrepreneur Country to play into the digital world with that. Goliath businesses don't need to be tied down. Goliath businesses will be able to engage with Davids through Entrepreneur Country. And my message to all of you today is that you don't need to go to Palo Alto. Where you can go and where you'll be embraced is an Entrepreneur Country. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I'll take care of this. Thank you. This has been the end of the first part of the day, and now a panel that everybody likes, lunch. So 45-minute break. We'll see you here at 2:15. 45-minute lunch break. Bon appetit, everybody.